Exodus 22, start verse 8, and we're going to read out the Message Bible, okay? Now we're in the part where, remember, Moses just got a direction from his father-in-law that said, hey, I need you to, you're doing too much work here. You're judging all these problems yourself. There's disputes amongst the people, and the disputes amongst the people are, you're judging every one of them. In fact, they're bringing every problem they have to you, and you're going to kill yourself. So he set up leaders, officers, over hundreds, over thousands, over 50s, and over 10s. And he set up leaders in groups. That way, depending on the person's ability to lead, he set them up that way. Okay? I want you to see something here. Now he's trying to give them instruction on how to live and relate in a community of people, because they come out of Egypt when they were kind of under slavery, and now they're here going, okay, how do we live amongst the people? So they're getting rules and laws now how to live. So here's how it works: if you do right, you're blessed. If you don't do right, you're cursed, and there's a punishment attached to it. So watch this: if someone gives a neighbor money or things for safekeeping, and they're stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay double back. If the thief is not caught, the owner must be brought before God to determine whether the owner was the one who took the neighbor's goods. In all cases of stolen goods, whether even oxen, donkeys, sheep, clothing, anything in fact missing of which someone says, that's mine, both parties must come before the judges. The one the judges pronounce guilty must pay double to the other. If someone gives a donkey or an ox or a lamb or any other kind of animal to another for safekeeping, and it dies, or is injured or lost, and there is no witness, an oath before God must be made between them to decide whether one has laid hands on the property of the other. The owner must accept this, and no damages are assessed. But if it turns out it was stolen, the owner must be compensated. If it has been torn by wild beasts, the torn animal must be brought as evidence. No damages have to be paid. If someone borrows an animal from a neighbor, you borrow something from somebody, and it gets injured or dies while the owner is not present, you're responsible. You must pay for it. But if the owner was with it, he doesn't have to pay. If the animal was hired, the payment covers the loss. If a man seduces a virgin, here we go. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the marriage price and marry her. If her father absolutely refuses to give her away, then the man must still pay the marriage price for the virgin. Don't let sorcerers live. Anyone who has sex with an animal gets the death penalty. Anyone who sacrifices to a god other than God alone must be put to death. Don't abuse or take advantage of strangers. You remember, were once strangers in Egypt. Let me stop here for a second. In other words, you were lost. You were lost in times past. And when you were lost, now you're in the kingdom, and you're going to look down on people that are still lost. That's what he's saying. Don't abuse or take advantage of strangers. People that don't know any better. That's what we expect sometimes when people get saved. They're out in the world for a long time. They come into the church, and then the church expects them to start immediately living up to the rules and regulations of people, of the church, and they've never been taught how to live. So what happens is the church sometimes, talking about the people, begin looking down on the people. And then you're not supposed to look down on strangers, people. And sinners do what sinners do. They're good at what they do. They sin. Right? I don't know why the church gets surprised sometimes when we see the world going, boy, the world's just going to hell. Well, the world is hell. It's not going there. Right? It just is. So when you look at people out there in the world that are living in sin, it's not a time to shake your head at like they're disgusting. They're only doing what they're known to do. Right? The real agitation comes from the believer, the church, that starts acting like the world. Right? So we feel like sometimes we have to become the world to try to win the world. No, you become you, but you don't separate yourself from the people that are in the world. You really don't. You actually have to engage in culture to be able to be a light in a dark world. Okay? But this is a big deal here because don't abuse or take advantage of strangers. You remember you were once strangers, and I've seen this happen too. This happens in the church. New converts, new people come in, they join the church, they're excited, they're saved, on fire for God, and the church is such a need of helpers, they'll work you to death. They'll let you sign up for everything. Right? They'll have you at the church 24/7 just to get you in there, and then you'll never have time to live life. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't serve, because you should serve in the church. However, but if you're not careful, you'll get people working so much in the church, and they'll forget to have a relationship with God and have a relationship with the church. That's called inbreeding. Church is female. All right, you guys get the picture. Don't mistreat widows or orphans. Here's another one. Now, I'm giving you all the law, okay, and I'm going to show you in a few moments. It'll take, it may not do it today, but we're going to get through this. As we get through these laws, you're going to see all these laws in the New Testament were written on your heart. So it's in you. It was in them to do wrong, so they needed a judge. It should be in you to do right, because you have the judge. Right? So an unrighteous person, a lost person, an unrighteous person needs to hear the gospel to convict them of their unrighteousness. Right? So they go, God, I can't keep all these. So the more they try to keep these, the harder they get. I mean, we've only read a couple chapters here so far, and I can't even remember what I'm supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. Anybody with me? Lord, the rules are so hard. I mean, it looks like, my goodness, don't mistreat a widow or an orphan. What's that mean? Who interprets what mistreating is? The judges. If you do and then they cry out to me, you can be sure I'll take them most seriously. I'll show my anger and come raging among you with the sword, and your wives will end up widows and your children's orphans. It's pretty serious business. Let's go to the next verse and I'll show you. If you lend money to people, to any of the down and out among you, don't come down hard on them and gouge them with interest. Wait a minute. Let's talk about this. This is the heart of God right here. Amen. The heart of God was orphans and widows. The heart of God was when I own property, it's mine. I'm to steward it. It's not for somebody to mistreat and take and steal from me. If I do loan, somebody's down and out, just because they're down and out, I don't become a loan shark. Right? That's right. Just because you can get it don't mean you can get it. Anybody know anybody that says, I'll give you $100? I need $100 to payday. All right, $100 it is. Well, they charge you, but it's going to cost you $150. That's why, okay, let me just go here. I've never seen anybody prosper in the kingdom that their banking relationships are check cashing places and pawn shops. Anybody okay with that? Yeah. If your source of lending is check cashing places and pawn shops, you're paying a high usury, an extremely high rate, and it's not the best place for you to prosper by using those places. I'm not saying there's not a place for them, and I'm not discounting them. I'm just saying I've just never met anybody that says, man, my business is really prospering. Thank God for the Pawn Shop Express. Do y'all want to hear this?
Yes. Amen.
I'm just telling you the truth, right? It's just, to be honest, it's a mind. I can take you to a town, a city. I travel all over the world, and all over this country. I can take you to a city, and I can show you a place that's deprived or declining by the number of check cashings, pawn shops, and title places.
Amen. Amen.
Am I telling you the truth?
Yes.
You can tell by looking. You just know, oh, it's on a decline because those pop up. Because those are a sign of an area that's in poverty.
Good.
And then there'll be what's that chicken place that pops up right around them too? Yeah, there'll be a Bojangles pop up next to them too. I'm just saying. I probably need to take a prayer break right now, don't I? Do you want practical living life, I can give you the theoretical discussion on Exodus, but I can show you also how it lives in your life, in practical life. Okay? If you take advantage of your neighbor's coat as security, or if you take your neighbor's coat as security, this is a pawn, okay? This is collateral. It's chattel, in other words. Give it back before nightfall. If it may be your neighbor's only covering, what else does the person have to sleep in? And if I hear the neighbor crying out from the cold, I'll step in and because I'm compassionate. Don't curse God and don't damn your leaders. Here we go. Don't be stingy as your wine vats fill up. Dedicate your firstborn sons to me. The same with your cattle and your sheep. They are to stay for 7 days with their mother, then give them to me. Be holy for my sake. Don't eat mutilated flesh you find in the fields. Throw it to the dogs. Don't pass on malicious gossip. Well, here's one for the church today. Don't pass on malicious gossip. Don't leak up with a wicked person and give corrupt testimony. Don't go along with the crowd in doing evil, and don't fudge your testimony just in case to please the crowd. Now, this is the Message Bible. You ever read this before? Okay, let me go back to this first part of this thing here again. One of the biggest challenges, I just dealt with this past week. Thank God it wasn't our church, but it was a situation that involved people at a church. And the gossip started flowing quickly. So I started talking about this particular person, and this person had a tendency to be offended because they had been affected by it before. So they were looking for the offense. And the gossip happened. Well, it happened in a way where the intentions weren't bad, it just wasn't wise. Okay? There's a scripture in Proverbs that says, when there is no wood, the fire burns out. And I tell my kids all the time, and I tell people that I deal with, if it's not true, or even if it is true and just doesn't bring life, then the best thing to do is not repeat it, because your words bring the wood. The fire, a bad story on somebody, true or false, will burn out if we don't add the wood to it. And Christians are bad about it, and we always do it in the name of, we're going to pray for you. Okay? Well, I'm concerned about them. We got to pray for them. We got to pray. Did you know? But you need to keep up in prayer. Nobody heard you about the prayer. All they heard about the story. And there's nothing worse than a story that's not good, that's defaming to somebody. And like, for example, I could use Lisa's example. If I know of a story about somebody, Lisa has no idea that story is there. She doesn't even know it exists. The minute I awaken her to that story, I've just given that story life, and now she's got to deal with it in her head. I've contaminated that ground.
Yeah.
I just contaminated her. Be no different than me going up just vomiting all over her. We wouldn't do that. Am I making sense? I got to appreciate her enough, not so much just the person I'm protecting on the story. I got to protect the person I'm vomiting on. They're worth more than my vomit. Right? Because she's got to deal with that. She's got to clean that off of her once that thing comes on her. And boy, I've never seen anything like it in the church. It's a mess. I've seen it so many times. It's just not dealing with middle school kids and high school kids. It's even worse because they're constantly lateral. And then by the time it goes to the next place, my God, the story's changed 100 times. And it happens in the church. And then people get offended and hurt in the church. And that's what we have over the course of decades of people offended. And here's what's sad, okay? The person that gets offended by the gossip is one thing. But the children that they have get really affected because the mom and dad now are living out of an offense of hurt. So they raise their children jaded from the church and from truth. They become a little sarcastic or a little cynical because they're guarded. And then what happens is the kids grow up in an offensed home and don't even know it. Right? Am I making sense to anybody? This is important. Yes.
Before you go any further.
Yeah.
In that situation, the person spoke in all honesty, but they shouldn't have spoke at all.
Yeah.
So you take it to the person that it was spoken to, and then you take it to God and ask for forgiveness. And they were
Yeah. Yes.
then I apologize to you.
Well, I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's what happens. I've already been down. I didn't hold that anyway because I already heard that mess before. But here's what happens: is somebody can taint you with false things or gossip, and it goes from ear to ear. Here's what I do, okay? And it's not a good. I'm not saying it's right, but it is just me. If Lisa comes to me and is telling me something on, what's your name? Tim? Tim, if Lisa tells me a story on Tim, and whether it be good or bad, and it looks like it's bad, but she knows I know Tim, but yet Tim doesn't know that I know what Lisa's saying, I just say, hang on, Lisa, I got to go get Tim. And I bring Tim and Lisa together, and it's a real uncomfortable situation. We do it, right? Because I can't have you vomiting on me. Now, if it's about me, I'm okay to hear it, okay? But if it's about Tim, you better make sure it's positive and has resolution in mind and not just lateral communication that's going to tear Tim down. Because if Lisa tells me something to give me a negative image in my mind of Tim, then she's just created a false image to me. Right?
Amen.
That's important.
Amen.
Because she can help create an image of my mind towards him. And here's what happens in the church a lot of times is that comes to me, I build an image of Tim. I don't really know Tim that well. When I get to know Tim, all my interactions with Tim are really filtered through the image that Lisa helped create. It's not fair to him. Right? I mean, I hear stuff like this all the time. It's important. You got to learn to live with people. You have to learn to live. Let's keep going. I can tell we're making a lot of progress today. Along with let's go back to that last one real quick. Don't pass on malicious gossip. Don't link up with wicked persons and give corrupt testimony. Listen to this one. And don't go along with the crowd in doing evil. And don't fudge your testimony in case just to please the crowd. You know the crowd pleasers, the embellishers. They just embellish everything. I know people like this. It wasn't 100 people there when it happened. It was 300. And you're going, I was there. It wasn't even 100. You know what I'm saying? And it's not even just that. It's just, man, I've heard this one. I was in a coma for 7 days. No, you were in the hospital for 7 days. You weren't in a coma. And see, it was bad enough being in the hospital 7 days. And now you just ruined your 7 days in the hospital because I was going to have sympathy for you for 7 days. But now that I know you really went in a coma, I just minimize what you did do, what you had to experience. Don't cheapen your real testimony by thinking you got to embellish it in a greater one. Okay? Just tell the truth as you see it. That's how it always goes. All right? Don't be a crowd pleaser. Your testimony is coming from you, the Lord. It's not just to get people going. Just because someone is poor, don't show favoritism in a dispute. Now, I see this a lot. Money answers all things, but it better not buy you in church. I was in a place one time where a lady came up and offered $10,000 for 2 reserved chairs in church. She's for the year. She said, I'll give you $10,000 for 2 reserved chairs. And that was going to be for every service and every special event. I said, we're not for sale. Not for sale. She was serious. There are people out there. Anybody here want to write a check for $10,000 for 2 chairs, reserved chairs? You ain't going to do that, are you? You won't do it here. We won't take your money. I feel like you guys are looking at me like, what in the world is he talking about? This stuff happens. And here's another thing that happens. Just because somebody has a little bit more than the other person, sometimes people lean towards the person that has a little more. So they give the benefit of the doubt to the other. I'm more of an underdog guy. Okay? So I have a tendency to lean towards the person that is getting taken advantage of. Even if they're wrong, I have a tendency to lean towards them. Nothing worse than somebody pouncing on somebody that can't really truly defend themselves. Or somebody having the ability, just because this person's got money and status, this person doesn't, then sometimes we have a tendency to just go along with this person and not this person. That's not the way to go. Okay? That's why we try to treat everybody we can equally here, the best that we can, the best we know, so it makes a difference. You're going to see, because I'm going somewhere with all this, and it's going to take me a few weeks to get here, you're going to see that love God and love people encompass all these. Okay? So rather than have to learn all this, the reason I'm breaking it down for you is because many people aren't living in the love of God and from God. They're living in trying to manage their flesh. So if you want to manage your flesh, I'm going to show you how to do it. This is how you manage your flesh. Okay? But if you walk in the spirit of love, these things automatically happen. Okay? If you find your enemy's ox or donkey loose, take it back to him. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you lying helpless under its load, don't walk off and leave it. Whoa. If you find your enemy's ox or donkey loose, take it back to him. How many people are going to do that? If you see the donkey of someone who hates you lying helpless under its load, don't walk off and leave it. Help it up. That's powerful. When there is a dispute concerning your poor, don't tamper with the justice due them. Stay clear of false accusations. Don't contribute to the death of innocent and good people. I don't let the wicked off the hook. Don't take bribes. Bribes blind perfectly good eyes and twist the speech of good people. Don't sell yourself out. Let me tell you something. You borrow $100 from somebody or $500 from somebody, the borrower is servant to the lender. That person can have the best intentions of the world, but the minute you're under them, they own you. Whether they know they own you or not, they own you. You're indebted to them. It makes you, it handicaps you, your ability to have a free-flowing relationship with them, because they can get off a little bit, you can know they can get off, but your ability to help adjust them is handicapped because you owe them. When you owe a person, that person has rule over you, whether you know it or not. It doesn't start out that way, but it ends up that way. Right? I've been in situations before, or know of situations where that's happened, and a person be crazy out there. Just somebody loans somebody $500. Next thing you know, they're needing their $500. You're in a position not to pay their $500. Oh, now they owe you. You owe them. And now you got a situation where it's not so healthy, and you're really having to want to speak into them some things that need to be spoken to them. You can't do it because you owe them. Does that make sense? Before you go underneath someone that you owe, family, friends, or foes, before you go up underneath that thing, you better make sure you know what you're doing. Don't let desperate times lead to desperate measures to put you under a place that you're going to be desperate forever. Okay? Because the best intentions of people, the posture changes when they own you. And I mean they own you, because a borrower is servant to the lender. They own you. That's just like you guys in Rocky's house. As long as you're in Rocky's house, Life House, as long as you're in there, you're going to feel a sense of gratitude and indebtedness to him, right? But the minute you don't pay your way, he really owns you. You see what I'm saying? And you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to be owned by anybody. Just throwing it out for food for thought. Don't take bribes. Bribes blind people perfectly. Good eyes and twist the speech of good people. Don't take advantage of a stranger. You know what it's like to be a stranger. You were strangers in Egypt. That's on there again. Did you notice that? Okay, keep that in mind. Sow your land for 6 years and gather it into crops. But in the 7th year, leave it alone and give it to the rest so that your poor may eat from it. See, not everybody's going to own. What they leave, let the wildlife have. Do the same with your vineyards and the olive gardens. Work for 6 days and rest the 7th, so your ox and your donkey may rest on and your servant and migrant workers may have time to get their needed rest. Don't kill people, right? There's nothing wrong with a season where you're working all the time, okay? Like, for example, Marathon does a shutdown. Sometimes they'll do 4 weeks or 5 weeks of 7 days a week. You can't do that for 12 months. But there are times where you're having to push a little further to get. But these people that, these two 6-day work week was a 6-day work week, right? Now, gosh, I'm not sure we even get 5 days out of a lot of people. You know what I mean? Because the work ethic is not as strong as it used to be. Because now there's such an entitlement in this country that people think everybody owes them. Because the government has set a standard where we owe you. So people don't want to, even when they're working for people, they feel like the employer still owes them because they're doing them a favor by working for them. The employer is really providing an opportunity for you to earn a living. And the indebtedness and the thankfulness and gratitude should be towards the employer, not that the employer owes you. That makes sense? Amen. It's all about attitude. It's all about heart. It's all about posture of life. And it's all about your condition of your heart. So work 6 days. Okay? Listen carefully to everything I tell you. Don't pay attention to other gods. Don't so much as mention their names. 3 times a year you are to hold a festival for me. Hold the spring festival of unleavened bread, when you eat unleavened bread for 7 days at the time set for a month of Abib, as I commanded you. That was the month you came out of Egypt. No one should show up before me empty-handed. Now this is God speaking, okay? Hold the summer festival of the harvest, festival of harvest, which is the Pentecostal feast. We just experienced that here even last Sunday. When you bring in the first fruits of all your work in the fields, hold the autumn festival of ingathering at the end of the season when you bring in your crops. 3 times a year, all your males are to appear before the Master God. Don't offer the blood of a sacrifice to me with anything that has yeast in it. Don't leave the fat from my festival offering out overnight. Bring the choice first produce of the year to the house of your God. Don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Yeah. Now get yourselves ready. I'm sending my angel ahead of you to guard you in your travels, to lead you to the place that I've prepared. Pay close attention to him. Obey him. Don't go against him. He won't put up with your rebellions, because he's acting on my authority. But if you obey him and do everything I tell you, I'll be an enemy to your enemies. I'll fight those who fight you. When my angel goes ahead of you and leads you to the land of the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, Hivites, and Jebusites, I'll clear the country of them. So don't worship or serve other gods. Don't do anything they do, because I'm going to wipe them right off the face of the earth and smash their sacred phallic pillars to bits. Not bad, huh? But you serve your God, and He'll bless your food and your water. I'll get rid of your sickness among you. There won't be a feeble one amongst you. There won't be any miscarriages nor barren women in your land. I'll make sure you live full and complete lives. I'll send my terror on the head of you and throw those people you're approaching in a panic. all you'll see of your enemies is the back of their necks. And I'll send despair on ahead of you. It will push the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites out of your way. I won't get rid of them all at once, lest the land grow up in weeds and the wild animals take over. What he's saying is, I'm not going to drive out your enemies all at one time, because if I do, somebody's got to occupy it. Do you know there are things in your life right now God has set up for you on your journey? Businesses, finances, family, relationships, all those things, education, God has set up for you on your journey, but you're not there yet. But he has people, even sometimes enemies, sometimes the world system, occupying your stuff while you're being prepared in this season. He just said it. He said, I can't take out the Hivites and the Perizzites and the Jebusites all at one time, because if I do, the land will grow up and the wildlife will take over. So I'm going to leave them alone, your enemies, I'm going to leave alone in that land, and I'm going to let them stay there. And they're going to occupy and tend to what's yours. You don't know that's there yet. You just have to trust you're going to get there. They don't have a clue you're coming. But I'm setting this thing up so they will take care of, they will steward, they're going to occupy until you come. But it's for you. That's why when you drive downtown and you see properties and you see real estate and you see businesses and you see education, and you're driving down, you're going, man, and you hear somebody that's really wicked that has that, you're going, man, that guy's so wicked. I don't know how in the world that business is even growing. You need to thank God and say, he works for you.
That's right.
That man works for you. I get excited when I hear, something happening, and I look at it and I go, oh God, look who owns that. No, I don't do that anymore. I get excited now and go, okay, good. I'm glad that's going up, because somehow that's going to be redeemed for the purposes of God. I know a guy that went in to a bank years ago. I think I may have told this story before, but he went into a bank years and years ago, and he applied for a loan, and he was going to start a business. He was a young man, or out of college, and the bank turned him down, and they were kind of smart with him, snotty with him, and when he's way out, he looked around, and he said, what are you doing? He was looking at the chandeliers and the building, and he goes, I was getting a good look at this place because one day I want to own it. And he was young, and they all just snickered and laughed and thought, he's mad, we just turned him down. Today, he not only owns that one, he owns 8 or 9 others. You've got to have that kind of attitude. Walk in and go, okay, I know what you're saying, but I'll have the last word, because I serve the word.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. Amen.
When they say it can't be done, you have to know that really is just not the end yet.
That's right.
Don't get weary in your well-doing, because until you're on top, the story's not ending. And people, just kind of phase out or weary out over a period of time, and you can't do that. You got to keep going. I tweeted this yesterday. I hear so many people talk about their dreams and their visions, which is really what this is. I got all this because he's reinstating their vision again. That vision I gave you when we left. Remember that vision? Yeah, but he just got to tell them how to execute. And so many people have visions and dreams, and the execution is the key. I've never met a successful person, a really successful person, that hasn't failed. They fail and they learn from their experiences. And they take those experiences on the journey, on their next execution towards that dream. But if you fail and stop, you'll never execute, and the dream dies. It becomes a bad memory because it becomes a painful sorrow. Going, oh God, what could have been? What should have been? What might have been? And then you'll see other people. God always does this too. When you're on your journey, he'll always bring people to you that are further along in your journey. And you see them and you go, God. And they won't even be as smart as you. They won't be as talented as you, smart as you, gifted as you, and probably won't even be serving the Lord. It'll be somebody else. And you're going, how in the world did they turn that into that? When here I am serving you, Lord. And then you start reminding God that I tithe. I tithe. Well, it comes back to this again. It comes back to your human effort trying to manage your flesh rather than recognizing whose you belong to. Okay? But I also know people that pie in the sky. What they do is they have a dream and a vision, and it's really big, but they don't execute, and they wait on God to do something. You have to pick your hand up and put it to the hand of the plow. I've never seen God be a genie. It's happened in the Bible. I recognize Peter went over and got the coin out of the mouth of the fish. All right, but I have not experienced that. Okay? I'm not saying it can't be, but I'm just saying but Peter had to go get the money out of the fish. Most of us today, can I say this without getting in trouble? Because I got 5 minutes to get myself out of it if I do. Most of us today want to sit on the front porch and wait for the mailman and call that blessed. Am I okay with that?
Yes.
No, blessed is when God speaks something into your heart that has not yet appeared. He gives you a plan of action that you move towards, and all of a sudden it appears, and it's better than you thought it could be. God did it for you. But it's going to take your effort. There will be sweat. It's the sweat of his brow or the sweat of your brow. But I promise you, you're going to work. You'll be working towards something, not working. You'll be working from the vision as a person trying to work to prove yourself to get the vision. Scripture says this, and here's a good example. Study to show yourself approved. A workman need not be ashamed, right? I've read my whole life that says, study to show yourself approved. So if I study, I'm proving myself to God that I'm approved. I'm worthy. It's not what it's saying. It says study to show yourself approved, because the more you study, the more you're going to realize you're already approved. Study to show yourself approved. Not to prove yourself, to show that you're approved. I'm approved, and the more I discover this in this Bible, I realize how approved I really am. Takes the pressure off me, puts the pressure on him, then I can go forward without the stress of wondering how this is all going to work out. Okay? Very practical, right? Making sense?
Yes.
This is the rules. This is the law. They start out with 10 commandments, turn into 613 rules. Probably a lot more than that. 613 rules. And you had to learn those rules to live by. Do you know if you break the speed limit here, if you go a certain mile per hour over the speed limit, it's one law breaking. If you go a little further, it's another one. If you get too far, it becomes another one, because it becomes reckless operation and all kinds of stuff. Because do you all know those? Anybody know what those are, what the breaking points are? Okay, then next week what we can do is we can study those things, because we probably need them to know them. No, we don't. We just need to know what the speed limit is to stay within it, so we don't have to worry about all those other things. Making sense? That's the law of love. You love God, love people, you'll do these things and won't even realize you're doing it, because you're going to regard people before you. These are all about yourself and how you interact with people. That's what I was saying about the transgender thing last Wednesday. You know, if somebody came in and was transgender, and this was a man now believing they're a woman, and they want to use the women's restroom because they feel like they're a woman now. Well, I appreciate the fact that you're going through some change, but the reality of it is you're going to make a lot of people feel uncomfortable by going in the woman's restroom when they know that you've been biologically a man. So if we're thinking about how you feel, then you want to use that. But this is not the kingdom. The kingdom is about how you put others before you. So when you walk in a room, a transgender walking in a room, they should be thinking about what kind of imposition they're going to make on people that make feel bad. And it should cause them to reconsider. Right? I'm a grown man. I walk in a bathroom with 6 boys. I'm going to make them feel uncomfortable. Just because I'm a grown man. Why? Because they're going to be intimidated by a man. What I want to do is I would want to wait and help them not feel uncomfortable. But if I don't care what they think, it's all about me, I'll do what I want to do. That's the problem with the country today, and most of the laws that are being regulated and pushed down our throats are about me.
Yes.
And it really should be about how I interact with people and putting other people before me. Because it really isn't about me. Make sense? Because if you're entitled, you'll appreciate it. But if you're a giver and a provider, a preferrer of other people, you'll deny yourself. And the kingdom is that denies yourself to put others in front of you. We'll go over the rest of these 500 and some things next week. We've got through 100 today already. And then we'll have a test and a quiz on at the end. Yo, is this helping anybody? I wanted to, there's been several, we went through Genesis, we went through Exodus, or going through Exodus, and there's so much of this I want to skip over, but I can't. Because you're going to see when I talk about this stuff, when we get way over here into the depths of the scripture, beyond Leviticus, you're going to see this stuff has a meaning. And how David would say things like, bring your firstborn here. And you're going, that really makes a lot of sense, David. But yet, it really stems back to this. So when he would say, bring your male, firstborn male that was no unleavened bread, which means there's no sin, he's spotless. When you bring that to me, your goat and your lamb, that's a type and shadow of Christ, the male lamb that didn't have any sin, that meets the qualifications of the sacrifice. But if you don't learn this here, over there will just be going, it'll go right over your head. But God is lacing the scriptures from old to new with a thread of the blood of Jesus and the Spirit of Christ all the way through. The word laced all the way through because it ties up into Him. Make sense?
Yes.
See you at 11 o'clock.